So I just watched a brand new 2024 horror film on Tubi called Night Shoot. This is one I went into completely blind. And this is about a group of film students that are trying to figure out what their school project is going to be. And, you know, it's going to be for some festival at some point or whatever. So they're like, you know, trying to come up with an idea. They add to their team this guy who is going to the college for baseball, but he has to take, like, you know, some other classes, and one of them is film. Lucky him. Fuck, man, I wish I was in film school, and this guy just gets pushed into one when he's there for something else. But anyway, so yeah, they decide they're going to do a documentary on these homeless people who live out in the woods. Now, this sounds like it's found footage. It isn't. This sounds like it's going to be a setup for like a really scary movie because we're dealing with, you know, student filmmakers out in the woods documenting something. Sound familiar, right? No. So, you know, I'm not really sure what to make of the tone of this film. As far as like the horror goes, I don't find any of the horror in this to be effective at all. This felt more like kind of a social commentary of sorts with, I don't know, it felt like a satire at times, and it's got a playfulness to it for sure, and a lot of the film is mostly like kind of like the drama between the film students. There's the one director guy who's like a dick, and he just only cares about the project, and he's like dating one of the girls. At least, yeah, there are a couple, I think. Whatever. There's a lot of butting heads, and he's always trying to like push them harder. And you know, the thing that I liked about the movie is that we were focusing on these film students, and we were building up some fairly authentic chemistry and whatnot. At first, it honestly felt kind of like it's not a high school, it's college, so like a college comedy. That's like how it kind of presented itself at first, is like it was setting up something like that. But then we kind of got into the horror, and we're dealing with, man, the climax of this film, when we're getting to the places where like the horror's supposed to be happening, I found all of that to not work like at all. I think the film is fairly well done. I was trying to think of like a new kind of term for something between a B movie and an A movie, something that feels genuinely like a high production Hollywood-esque type of film, and like a B grade horror movie, like some Roger Corman movie or you know, whatnot. But this is like B plus, A minus, somewhere like right in that middle ground between the two, where it feels like it's pretty competently made, but you can still tell that it's made by indie filmmakers. Overall, I think it's okay. I think it's fine. I think because I went into it wanting a horror movie, and with the setup that it has, I thought that them going into the woods, that we were going to really amp up the horror, and it just never does that. There's some attempts at like, you know, the menacing presence out in the woods, and you know, the distrusting nature they have around the homeless people, and they're like kind of going back and forth of like, you know, oh, we're just being you know, judgmental towards the homeless, they're harmless kind of thing. But there's this like group of like murderous people out there, which of course is the threat, and they are so unexplored. They are so just kind of like wasted in the end. It really just kind of is like, oh, that's it. That's all we were building up to with this. And then the ending is supposed to kind of be like this almost shocking kind of thing, and you're like, oh, that took a turn, and like, that didn't work for me either. I think it's fine. I don't know. I was kind of going back and forth on this one. I'm not really sure exactly how I feel about it. I think the chemistry between the characters was good, and they were like engaging enough for me that I would like watch the whole thing. But once again, like, because it is labeled as just horror on Tubi, and because of like how it set itself up to be a horror film, and it technically is. I mean, I'm reviewing it, and I will count this as a horror movie at the end of the year, because that is kind of what they aimed for in the end. And throughout, I'm not going to say that there wasn't horror elements throughout. There definitely is, but they feel so not scary. They feel so not horror most of the time that it's really hard for me to take this seriously as a horror film. It just feels like light-hearted horror or light horror. It's interesting, even though it tries to kind of go darker with some stuff in it too. So it's like this is what I'm saying. This is where like the tone, the misbalance, like one of the biggest complaints I always have on the channel. I don't shit on films often, and I try to avoid doing so, and I try to be as fair as possible. But my biggest thing I always run into that always gets me like kind of tongue-tied and stumbling over my words and kind of lost is just an uneven tone. I just couldn't vibe. This is something I just talked about recently, where you're just like just out of sync with the vibe of the movie, and you keep trying to like line up with it. And that's kind of what this was giving to me. I didn't dislike any of the characters. I think they're good, but I never really connected with anyone either. Right? It just like we introduced this baseball guy who comes into the group, and it like ultimately goes nowhere. Like it's just kind of there to fill up some time and like introduce them to the group and kind of be like the us character, right? They always have to have the audience character for the exposition of like, what are you guys doing? Because they wouldn't be explaining it to each other. They're already a tight-knit group. But there's just nothing, it doesn't really go anywhere. The friendships, they all kind of just, I don't know. It's fine. It's watchable. I wasn't big on it. But I also don't think it's like trash or anything. It just felt like a very uneven film. Anyways, the air conditioner just kicked back on, so I think I'm gonna kick myself off. It's not a recommend, really. Check it out. It's on Tubi. It's free. If you want to see what for yourself, watch a trailer. Let me know. Bye.